Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. How the devil are you? It is the end of a very, very long week. I know if you've been enjoying all of the festivities of Tech Ed Week, it's been fantastic. Tech Ed, God, EdTech Week. There we go. My name's Dave Coplin. I'm going to be your host for a fabulous live stream. We are exploring every crevice of creativity, bringing it into the curriculum. And why are we here? Well, for many of us, we're here for this gentleman, actually, this fantastic gentleman who taught so many of us to appreciate the beauty of creativity. And from my mind, his inspiration, his legacy to me is he's the patron saint of, for just bloody God's sake, would you do the right thing in terms of helping our kids acquire the skills that they're going to need to be successful in the world, the future that they're actually going to inherit, which, by the way, isn't the world that we inherit today. It's a very different place. And so this is for you, Sir Ken. This is for you, creative people. This is for you in education. We want to hear from you. We want to have you as part of the conversation. We want you dialed in. We're on the chat line as well, so we're watching your comments come through. So hi, Richie. Hi, Jazz. Hi, Genevieve. Hope you're all doing good. The format for today is essentially we're going to run through. We've got a lineup of amazing, inspirational people who are doing incredible things, smashing together the world of technology and creativity in all sorts of amazing ways. We're going to hear a little bit from each of them as we go through the first session. We're going to have a very short intermission, just give you time to go and grab a drink, whatever it may be. It's Friday night, knock yourselves out. And then we're going to go straight into a panel conversation with a few of our guests talking through what might be possible. So again, thanks so much for taking the time to join us. I'd now like to bring in our first guest, who is Max Wheeler. Max, how are you doing, my friend?
Hello. Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, nice to be here.
So Max is the program director of VIP studio sessions at Churanga Music and author of multimedia youth music materials. Tell us more about that, Max.
Yeah, so I suppose the easiest way to describe what I do is that I'm a music producer, sort of first and foremost. That's what I do. Kind of day in, day out. I'm based in my studio. But really what's happened is my sort of journey as a producer led me into education. And I found this kind of landscape where the sort of stuff that I do, so kind of, electronic music, new types of music, was just really difficult for young people to access in education. And working with Churanga are an amazing company who sort of specialize in e-learning and music. And I basically kind of took on the mantle of trying to develop cloud-based resources for schools to allow them to teach things like grime music, hip-hop music, electronic music, pop music, sort of new styles of music that young people are really into. And that when I meet young people, the kind of music that they ask to learn about, we were just looking at ways of, bringing that to more young people, making that more accessible, making it available as well, even if teachers aren't necessarily that confident in delivering that style of music themselves. So it's kind of really just allowing young people to engage with the types of music that they're really interested in. And yes, it's become a kind of big passion of mine. And what's really nice is that I'm still doing both of those things. So I'm still, an artist signed to a record label, releasing records. And we're trying to really bring a bit of that music industry, real world approach into the classroom, basically. So actually, exactly like you were saying in the introduction there, the kind of skills you're actually going to need to release records, to be an artist in the current world, instead of it being like, right, we're going to start with music theory and we're going to talk about, Baroque lute music and how to harmonize a sackbut. I'm saying, okay, well, what's the kind of music you might actually hear on Spotify this week and how do you make it?
No, I love that. And also what's I think so important with that is, I think technology in particular offers us a whole new interface into music that I think is important to explore as well. And so I think helping people connect, the music they hear with different techniques in a way that you're doing is so important. I also think music is so important as part of, being the hook for people. Funnily enough, one of the people who I can already in the chat is a very good friend of mine. It's all gone quiet.
Oh, hello. Yeah, I'm still here.
Still there. Excellent. Sorry, it all went quiet for a minute, but it's a very good friend of mine, who Richie Prin, who is just the most wonderful musician. And what I love about Richie's story is, the bit at school that really truly engaged him was music, and I think he got really lucky with a great music teacher who could see that in him. And whilst he would not sort of engage in the same way in his academic subjects, it showed him a pathway, to utilize his creativity to create something that, and now he's doing amazing, in his own right as a musician. education. So it's just wonderful that you're able to do that.
Yeah.
How do the kids sort of engage with it? How do they receive it?
Yeah, it's really popular. And I think one of the big things is that what we're seeing a lot of is really big mass scale projects, especially at Key Stage 3, where we've, say, got 400 or 500 young people in a year group all creating their own track. So creating a piece of house music, creating a piece of grime music, real kind of like large scale engagement. And I think, like you were saying, the key really is that the new technology, cloud-based technology, what we're really looking at is browser-based technology. Using browser-based technology to make it free at the point of access for the young people. So it's removing the economic barriers, it's removing the technological barriers. It's allowing access to that platform for all of the young people that we work with. And that then means that what we're seeing is real like mass engagement, especially say like lots of young women engaging with music technology, because actually when you remove the technological barriers, it turns out young women do want to make beats. We're seeing lots of young people from sort of disadvantaged backgrounds, say young people who may be harder to reach, maybe wouldn't normally consider themselves a candidate to do music GCSE. We're seeing a lot of actually subject up. It's really exciting. And I think the example that I quite often give is it's a bit like if you want a young person to learn the cello, historically the music service has to lend them a cello and they go away and learn to play it. But with music producers or pop singers, or, beat makers, we expect them to, use a computer in an IT suite for 1 hour a week when they're in their music lesson and somehow learn to be a producer. And it's like, you can't do, if you want to learn to produce music, you need to be able to access that outside of school. And that's what the cloud and the browser-based stuff has allowed us to do. So here's a login, you can use it at home, you can put in as much time as you want. And we're really seeing that. We've just had our first producer get his first release on Sony Records. And this was a kid who was really struggling in year 7 and is now releasing on major labels. And I mean, we've had some great interviews and stuff with him. And that's the thing we're trying to do is say, right, here's the tools, go away, get creative, get involved. And actually here's the links into the industry as well. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. And I think it definitely links into a lot of the kind of themes you're talking about today in terms of there are ways to be creative. And a lot of that is to do with new technology giving us new options that weren't there 5 years ago, even 2 years ago. There's opportunities now to make this stuff widely available. Yes, it's exciting stuff.
No, I love that, Max. Now, listen, we're going to sort of rattle through, so we're going to crack on to our next guest, but I know you're going to be back with us for the panel discussion. So thanks for joining us, Max. We'll come back to you later on.
My pleasure.
So next up, sorry to cut you off there, Max. I'll work on my timing as we'll get better as the show goes on, I promise. So next up, we've got Joe Moretti. Now, Joe is a Apple Distinguished Educator for Worldwide iPad and Education. He's a music technology specialist and another pro musician. How the devil are you, Joe? Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me.
It's really good that you could be here. Now, Joe, we've got a video from you, so I'm just going to cut straight to the video and then we'll come in for a chat. How's that?
That sounds good.
Now I'm going to say roll VT, which is really unnecessary because there's nothing to roll and there's no tape.
Old style, isn't it?
It is, but it's more exciting than saying press the button.
Go on, say it anyway.
Go on, roll VT. There we go.
So with this short video, I just want to demonstrate what I'm looking for in terms of bringing software into the classroom. I'm obviously looking for creativity. I'm looking for inclusivity, and I'm also looking for differentiation right across the board in terms of genre and the ability of my students. So I'll start with a keyboard just to demonstrate a couple of key points. So here we have GarageBand on the iPad, and I can immediately change between a traditional keyboard, one which I have the option of putting the note names on, as you can see, or indeed this one, which is a smart keyboard. I'll explain the difference very quickly. With this, I'd need to be able to play a chord and know what goes into that. If I connected up a MIDI keyboard, that's a traditional keyboard, a student who has that technique would be able to play all of these sounds from a traditional keyboard. A lot of students don't have that. So this smart keyboard is wonderful for working with chords, left hand and right hand, just by tapping on the screen. For students who find that difficult, I also have this autoplay feature, which will play different patterns for me. So I'm going to record that very, very quickly and just demonstrate how I can explore chords with very little chord knowledge.
So look, I'm going to cut back to you, Joe, because that's a great example of what we were just talking about with Max, isn't it? And I love GarageBand for just bringing that accessibility, especially to young people. It's kind of instant gratification, isn't it? It must be so rewarding to be able to do that.
I mean, one of the things I was trying to show with that video was that I can work at any level. I started teaching music in 1982. And the thing was, the facilities at that point was, if you were going to play keyboard, you needed to have keyboard technique. And so this whole idea of inclusivity, differentiation, and trying to get away from this idea that music was this special thing that only a certain group of people could do. And even then, sort of 20 years later, when we were working in Logic and a lot of students were into drum and bass and house music, we were accessing making music through a sort of matrix editor, which was really unmusical. The thing is that we've got to a point now that software really should be truly intuitive for students to literally be touching sound and creating sound. And we want as little distance as possible between coming up with the creative process or the thought and realizing it. We're very lucky, actually. I mean, we're doing all of this on a piece of glass. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's mad. But for me, it's the accessibility. It's funny enough. My son's just been doing music theory grade 5, right? And so I've been trying to, and it's impenetrable, to the layperson. Do you know what I mean? It's hard work. I can help him with his math. I can help him with his physics. I was like, seriously, dude, you are on your own. And I just think
you're looking at someone who grew up with it. Yeah. So for me, I was very lucky. My father was a great session and guitarist, and I grew up on theory and jazz theory, so it was instilled in me. But I was so aware. My kind of whole background is classical, then moved into jazz, and then moving into music technology. But the thing is that working with students, you're so aware that the range within music is vast. And Max referred to the cellist, and I'm thinking about a cellist compared to somebody that wants to get into creating their own music without actually going through an instrument. You're right about grade 5 theory, how many sharps and what minor and all the rest of it. And I feel the same way about music theory in terms of, I work with a lot of schools that work with Sibelius, for example. And the first thing about Sibelius is really, if you can't read music, you're not going to be able to use it.
Yeah.
So I often get asked, can you bring GarageBand in to give me entry at the lowest level, and how far can I go with that?
Yeah.
The crazy thing about GarageBand on an iPad is it can really match 80 to 90% of exam level music from 14 to 16. Okay, it doesn't do notation, but it does just about everything else. It does things that we were trying to do with software 30 years ago, and it does it for free. I'm not just an advocate of GarageBand, by the way. I'm an advocate of whatever works.
Yeah, but you see, that's why I think this stuff's so important, because for me, it's all about it's getting them hooked. And I think to get young minds hooked, and I have this in computer science, right? That's my art, if you like. If they can't make something happen, if they can't engage with it and do something in the physical world, it's actually really, really hard to maintain their interest. And so I kind of like the bait and switch, if you like, of things like, GarageBand, but also, other tools like Reason, even Ableton, it's enough to get you started. And then once you get to a level, this whole new world of complexity opens up. But by then you've got the confidence that you know enough about how it works to be able to engage them further. And again, isn't it wonderful? It's against the context of music, right? Which is such a rich, creative thing anyway.
The thing is, looking at GarageBand, and a lot of people do use it, and then they say, oh, but it would be nice if it had orchestral instruments because I have these sort of students. And I go, well, actually, if you looked under other, you'll find every orchestral instrument. And they go, oh, my heavens, it's got French horns, it's got pizzicato strings. Yep, it's got everything. It's a crazy piece of software.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Listen, Joe, it's absolutely wonderful for you to join us. And so thanks so much for sharing that with us.
It's a pleasure.
So with no further ado, we're going to move on to our next guest. It feels like we're getting through quite quickly, which is wonderful just to have so much amazing talent with us. So our next guest is Erin Corder, who is the assistant head teacher at Denby High School and developing a creative arts curriculum. Erin, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, really, really, really good. What would you like to do? Should we go straight to your video to set the scene? Is that?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so we're going to run some more VT, and then we'll be right back with you to talk through, Erin. Thank you.
Every opportunity we celebrate on our website, we celebrate in our news. Welcome to a whistle-stop tour on how to develop a school culture that values the arts. A little bit about the context of Denbigh. It's important to note that 38% of our students are from a disadvantaged background, with 99% of students from minority ethnic backgrounds, resulting in 95% of our students who are EAL. I think it's important that you start with your vision. As a school leadership team, as a head teacher, I think that you start with your vision of what you think are the values that you want your students to leave with. And here we're very proud to say that we want positive influences on the local, national and global stage, when creativity lends itself to a wider understanding of these things. And then respectful and creative young adults with an enthusiasm and thirst for the next chapter in life. At our school, we have a sustained commitment to developing teachers. I think that this is incredibly important. You want to put the best teachers that you can find in front of your students. That means that you have to really look at recruitment and retention of these people, and ensuring that they are then grown and developed. This is something at Denbigh that we've done in the arts team incredibly well, and beyond. You want a rich and varied curriculum that offers alternative pathways. So are there any other alternative qualifications that would be suitable for the needs of your learners? Thinking creatively about the things that you can offer. And then probably one of the most important things is offering a programme of extracurricular activities. Where is the opportunity for them to be intellectually curious beyond the classroom? So we started in the arts with our Key Stage 3 offer. We looked at art and drama, and at Key Stage 4 we offer media. What we did was we combined our music, design technology and media Key Stage 3 offer to create a subject called production studies. This really is a mix of all three subjects and prepares them well for that transition into media. Rather than have them as isolated subjects, we've decided to brand them as the arts faculty almost, so that you can identify, and so the students can identify where these artistic and creative opportunities are taking place. You will see that we've mapped from year 7 up to year 8 and then the transition into year 9. They can see what subjects and what topics they will be studying and relate it individually to each of those three areas. Anything that is in orange is a club that is there to supplement the curriculum. And these are not only run by teaching staff, but we have non-teaching staff. We have a receptionist that runs a club. Anybody who can offer you that creative expertise to enhance the learning of our children.
So I'm just going to cut back in to talk to you, Erin. That sounds amazing. How long have you been developing that for?
So I think production studies has been running for 4 years now, and it has been sort of evolved for a period of time to the qualification that it is now. And we're always reviewing the curriculum to look where we can ensure that there is a certain breadth for our students. It's interesting listening to Max and Joe, because the buzzword really does seem about access. And you're absolutely right. We as a school, we've worked really, really hard to ensure that the technology is there, that the software is there to, and, it's funny you talk about GarageBand and Logic, and, they're used consistently in our production studies. But again, using that as part of our music offer, we don't have an explicit music teacher. And I reinforce the point made in the presentation about, when you get your great teachers, you've got to keep hold of them and you've got to grow them and you've got to develop them. You put great teachers in front of children who are so hungry to learn and so enthusiastic and so malleable, you're going to get great results. So where we didn't have a sort of explicit music offer, we combine that with design technology as well to put together this kind of music production that I think Max was talking about, that sounds very, very similar. And we use that as a sort of stepping stone into GCSE media and production. And it's really, really a kind of amalgamation of all the skills that they will need at that Key Stage 4. Another example would be, for example, we reviewed our art and design offer so that we could introduce an element of textiles for the students. Again, thinking about that as a design technology offer and that element of creativity, but upskilling our students, giving them something different, giving them something that is relevant to their needs. Lots of our students spoke about a desire to pursue fashion and that those elements of creativity. And so we reviewed our curriculum and we looked at it and we upskilled our teacher and teachers. And then the big thing when we're talking about the access and the accessibility is putting on your clubs and your extracurricular opportunities for those students. I think the sort of stepping stone to that, we said they've got to do it outside of lessons. Well, we create those opportunities in school. We create that with our lunchtime clubs, with our after school clubs. And there's a real commitment and dedication and a buy-in there. We spoke about celebrating the arts and celebrating the things that the students have done and rewarding them. We've had afternoon teas where we've invited their parents in to come and share and listen to their music or look at the sewing that they've created, or we've held free art exhibitions within the community. We've taken children who are keen on singing, we've taken them to the local hospital to sing. We've taken a couple of our children who went to keyboard club down to the local care home to go and perform for the church. Obviously, this is pre-COVID, of course. But it's that kind of energy and commitment to the arts that really does create the buzz and the culture of value that surrounds it.
Yeah, no, I love that, Erin, and I love the fact that you've taken such a sort of a holistic approach when it comes to the staff and getting them involved. It's funny, one of the messages that's just come in again from Richie, who is a professional musician now, and what he's talking about, how it was, funnily enough, because he started with GarageBand and then progressed to Logic. The music department didn't really engage with him because he wasn't doing proper music, but it was actually the drama teacher who saw the talent, who saw the opportunity and connected that. And I think it's so important, is it, to have everybody thinking really broadly. And for me as a technologist, the sort of the thing that I really would love people to do, and people like you and everybody on the call, is, we put technology in this box and it's about coding and there's a bit of technology that is about that, but technology for me is just this wonderfully creative canvas, and it unleashes talent in all sorts of directions. And so to have someone like you who recognizes that and can build that with your staff to tease that out of the kids is just such a wonderfully sort of huge opportunity to be able to have.
That's great, and that's lovely to hear. I mean, there's so much overlap. Our drama productions, it involves the whole arts team, it involves all of us, and our arts team is relatively small, but we're growing now. And we you will have seen our sort of logo and our emblem, and we've branded ourselves, and they're not these standalone departments anymore. We're absolutely a united team and drive the creative strands across the school.
Yeah, no, exactly. But also, if you think about it, and I know we've seemed to have fixated on music a lot, and I don't mean to, but it's such a great example. If you think about today's musicians, it's not enough that they're great musicians. They also have to be artists. They have to be great in design. They've got to think about photography and filming, because they're actually doing all of this themselves in today's world. They're creating their videos. They're creating their brand. So all of these skills are so important that we encourage and nurture. And I think that's why, arts is always this sort of, if you're not careful, tends to be quite sort of boxed, doesn't it? And I think we just need this really broad approach.
I think one of the things that's helped us massively at Denby is our careers program. We have had industry experts coming in to talk. We have a huge alumni program now that's growing all the time, where student, last term we had a student who was doing an internship at ITV come in and talk about his experiences, one who was applying to the BBC and had done various bits of work experience, but coming in and kind of opening the eyes of our children to these opportunities. And when it's ex-student, it's role modelling, isn't it? And they just, the aspirations are raised incredibly.
No, absolutely. And that was one thing I wanted to pick up from what you said earlier. And I think it's so important, and again, in today's world, to connect, if you like, the vocational outcome of these skills, of these artistic skills, the opportunities that it creates. And, anything from, working in media through to game design and all that sort of stuff. And I find often when I'm talking to audiences about this, that's the bit that not just the kids want to hear, but the parents want to hear too, because I think they're looking for confidence that their kids are acquiring skills that are going to really help them in their, you know, their future lives.
It's so important, and you know, turning those subjects really into sort of career reality, into things that the parents can really see. You know, sort of, as you say, becoming viable vocational options. It is absolutely massive, and we've held parental engagement sessions specifically for that. You know, and that's why we want to involve the parents so much. It's not just a case of coming and watching your son or daughter perform. It's where can this go? Where can this lead them? What is available to them? And we're working really hard at the moment to sort of kind of take those next steps.
No, exactly. Erin, look, that's absolutely wonderful. And it's so great to hear such a sort of a joined up approach, but also coming from the leadership as well. I think that's really, really fantastic. I know you're going to be back with us for the panel discussion. So thank you so much. I'm going to move on to our next contestant. So thanks, Erin. Wonderful. And our next contestant is Genevieve Smith-Nunes, who is a PhD candidate at the University of Cambridge and currently looking at where the worlds of classical ballet and computer science collide. Genevieve, how lovely to have you with us. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm a little bit sore. I had spinal surgery yesterday, so I'm actually in bed.
Oh my God, as you do. Oh, Jesus.
I'm
well,
so
listen,
full of makeup. Like I've got like about 20 layers of makeup on. See,
well,
the joys of technology. The joys of technology means I could be here even though I'm actually in bed and recuperating. So yeah.
And not just a pajama day, a proper reason as well.
A real pajama day.
Yeah. So listen, Genevieve, you've again supplied us with a lovely video. So I'm just going to play that for the audience, and then we'll be right back with you. Wow, is all I can say about that, Jenny. That is just insane. Tell me about that.
All right. So it's very hard for people to understand the connection between classical ballet and programming. I probably should give a little bit of a background. My background comes in, I was a secondary computing and maths teacher from 2004 till 2012. And then I moved to A-level. And then through to that 2017, I started working at the University of Roehampton. So working in the computing education, PGC, and now I'm a digital media lecturer as well.
Wow.
So that kind of gives you the background of why I'm interested in it. So there was no girls in it. And I went to dancing school when I was little, so I could actually see how ballet could be turned into a programming language. It has the same rules and structures that you get in a programming language such as Python or Java or whatever. And it's as rigid. It's incredibly rigid if you're looking at specifically classical ballet. Contemporary, less so. It's actually interesting. Folk dancing is probably the closest to programming languages alongside classical ballet, whereas things like Argentine tango have steps but no rules. So there's lots of interesting things where I looked at which forms of dance could we look at in order to kind of embody. It's called tacit somatic knowledge, and it's how you kind of embody learning through movement. And it's a really
Wow.
good way for your brain to store information, a bit like Maya's multimedia theory of why you have kind of dual channel coding and things like that. So,
Well, yeah, obviously that was what I was going to say the first minute you said it.
no, but it's actually really interesting if you look. It's the things like having the labels underneath with our names on it and us talking. So it's that kind of information. But so this is the 4th ballet that I'm doing. I did the very first ballet in 2014 when we brought out the new curriculum, the new program of study for England. And then the second ballet was all about data transmission and viruses. So the ballet represented that, and we had data visualization and projection mapping. The third ballet was about chronic pain and biomedical engineering. So we looked at the pain gate system and performed that in a sense. And we had some small biometric sensors on the dancers to represent pain signals and things. And then the next ballet was supposed to be a mixed reality one, or extra reality, whatever you want to call it these days. They like changing their names, don't they? And COVID happened, which meant I had to flip the whole thing to virtual, which is actually quite fascinating to move the technology along. So we're doing a full AR classical ballet, and we're using video technology like this to capture the dancers' data and turn it into 3D models in real time. So yeah, it's called mocap.net, and some of the Spanish academics developed an algorithm for it.
Yeah, and what's the reception been? You know, when you're talking to people about building this, how do people react to it? I mean, I'm genuinely, it's amazing.
It's either that or what? It's the so yeah, so it's in if you just kind of say it, they don't get it as much as watching it, I would say. One thing we have noticed with the data of people coming to watch the live performances, we tend to get a much higher male audience for a classical ballet performance than you would do normally. So it might be the dads taking their kids as opposed to their mums. Right. That happens, that kind of thing. So we have a much higher male audience rating, which is good because so ballet is interesting in terms of it's accessible for people in terms of going to study it. Loads of people will have done it, but it actually feels quite elitist to go and watch it. So there's another barrier there that we're trying to break down. But the fact that you can actually dance and use your own data to generate the visuals, generate the music. This is what we're doing this time around. So we're using the brainwave data and the biometric data to, in a sense, encode the score for the ballet. So things like Sonic Pi we'll use. You can also, you can, what's the word? You can sonify your brainwave data in Python and things like that. So we always use simple technology that you could find in the high street. So we'll only ever use like one connect that you get off eBay, like not like a full developer's kit. The only thing that we have kind of gone into purchasing, and that is the Emotive Brainwaves headset. But the guys at Emotive are really helpful and really interested in what I'm doing. So they, anytime I have a little bit of a problem, I can just get in touch and they'll kind of try and help me out. But it's beautiful. It's like that brainwave where it said neuroethics is actually mine. They're my brainwaves.
That's just it's
beautiful, isn't it?
Isn't it? And this is what I love. And I talk to people about this. So my deal is AI. I spend a lot of time talking about AI, and AI in itself is not creative, right? It's not creative. It just follows a pattern that it's been told to pattern. But the creativity comes when you start to harness that to do creative things. That's the magic for me. And so it really is just trying to sort of bring that to life. Now you sort of mentioned it at the beginning of our conversation as a way of sort of getting more girls into technology. Have you what's been the impact of the diversification of your audience?
Well, so it's more about widening participation as opposed to just girls. This is the kind of difference. So when we did the very first ballet, we had like the whole computer science class getting involved. So all the dancers are always amateurs and always students. It's because everyone's learning, and that's what computer science is. It's about learning and being creative. It's not about being professional and accurate kind of. It is as well, but it's that kind of, so for me, it really has to be with young people. So,
yeah, but what you just captured there is something that I think is missed a lot. And look, lots of computer scientists are massively creative, and they will see that creativity. But often when you're teaching computer science, you're teaching this sort of cold binary logic, and the color and the beauty of what it can do in the hands of people like you is lost. And I think that's such a tragedy, because we need creative programmers, but actually I don't need them sat in the dev team. I need them all around the world, doing in every walk of life, bringing the kind of magic that you're showing there to everything that we do, just to light up. Data is such a beautiful thing, isn't it, when you can see it, and so it's just great to be able to do that.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I want to do it, is you were talking about this earlier about the world that our children are going to and doesn't exist yet. And one of those big things is data ethics and understanding and ownership of our data. So to be able to explore your brainwaves is quite an intimate thing. And what are the premises, pitfalls, and potentials of that are quite exciting, but also can be quite scary. But getting the students to then explore it and understand what are the challenges and potentials of it, then they are going into the world armed to develop a better future. That's kind of like how I see it. I mean, it seems a bit, oh my God, wow. But it's more to do with actually just giving them the opportunity to take this abstract and make it more concrete.
But it's also doing it in a way that brings it to life. I've long held the belief that it's always a dangerous experiment trying to combine the worlds of art and science. And Lord knows, as scientists, right, a family of scientists will go to the sort of, and it's often when the arts guys are trying to, bring science into what they're doing, and it just genuinely, you just think, oh God, no, please just stop. But actually it's also doing it in a way which is positive and creative. So it's not, let's talk about the problem of a world full with data and what that will be. And now think about what will happen when your brain is connected. What kind, we don't need to do that. Science fiction will do that for us, right? What we actually need to do. Well. Yeah, no, exactly. But what we need is someone who's going to say, hey kids, look at what we could do with this. What kind of a world would you build if this was possible? And that's the bit where for me, the lights go on and the eyes go wide, and they start and we get beyond, the obvious kids, the kids who are, of course you'd be into this because you like technology, but we get the quiet ones at the back who sort of maybe lack the confidence, but want to be involved. That's why I think it's such a rich approach.
Yeah, and it's also one of the other things that I've found is that they feel like the arts is a space to be both kind of brave and take risks. As instead of a safe space, it's a brave space, and that kind of failure that we build in with computer science is kind of similar. So, and obviously for me, I brought, I'm 45, so the ability to, it was 100 lines of code, and then you will make one mistake, and then you're like, Dr. Jobs, back again, a page, I want to play my Dragon's Day too. So you have that built in, whereas now it's this like instantaneous thing. But I love it though. There's so many creative things, like Fortnite Creative is amazing. Any of the free world spaces like Minecraft, but I'm also loving Adobe Aero. And they've just brought out their beta desktop, and I love that because it's actually just stuck to iOS at the moment, and I like it when we can expand and teach. But we also have to have ways that aren't required with so much technology, so we can actually include the whole world and not just those that can afford it.
No, exactly. Listen, Genevieve, that's absolutely wonderful, and I know we're going to get to you on the panel as well. Ladies and gentlemen, could you just give me a minute? We need to do some technical things in the background, which I think we'll just see. And there we go. I've just seen him run from the entire opposite side of the room. We are going to let him catch his breath, and I'm going to introduce our next guest, who is Mr. Ian Phillips, who is, from my perspective, is the architect of the event that we are now enjoying. And by the way, if you are enjoying, please do join in the conversation online. We would love to get some likes or even some dislikes if you're not happy. Let us know what we can do better as we go through. Smash that like button. Give us a subscribe as well while you're there. Why not? Because just, it's Friday night, sort of fill your boots. So on that, with no further ado, let me bring Mr. Ian Phillips. How the devil are you?
I'm really well, but I'm so pleased that you got to experience Genevieve. She came to the Are we good?
Yeah, sorry, Ian. We lost everything. I'm just trying to figure out what's going on.
Did I push the wrong button?
No. Just the machine died. First time ever.
Okay. It's going really well, though, Dave.
Yeah, we're getting there, Ian. Bring the stream back up. I'm just waiting to see. We should be back. Genevieve tells us we can hear us. That's fantastic. So thanks, Genevieve. That's good to get that. So I'm glad we didn't say bloody hell. Genevieve went on a bit, didn't she? Jesus.
Oh, David just said it.
I think we're back in now. Fantastic.
Excellent.
All right. So Ian, sorry about that. We're talking about the joys of technology. Remember, folks, we're all doing this not only out of the love of our hearts, but domestic broadband. So there you go. I think we're back in the room. 3, 2, 1. So thanks, Richie. Thanks, Genevieve, for letting us know. Ian, without further ado, take us where we were.
I was just telling you where we left off. Where we left off, I was just saying that Genevieve came. There was an event. It was the microbit launch. And Genevieve came to talk to 200 boys, and they sat there while she showed her video and talked about stuff. I think some bit went over their heads, some bit went in, but they had their mouths wide open. And that's the sort of inspirational moments we want to give people, where they think, I need to understand this more. I think I get it, but I want to understand this. And I think that's part of what we're doing.
It absolutely is, and for me, if the inspiration isn't there, we're not creating the momentum. We're not breaking the inertia, if you like, in those young minds to want to embrace more and to want to engage more and learn about what this can do for them.
I had this boy, Dave. He represented the country in chess, and he represented the country in the International Olympiad, right? And I had nothing to do with it, right? He obviously got an A star in computer science, but I had nothing to do with it. I said to him, what do I need to do? How do I get more kids switched on like you? He was so humble, lovely guy. The funny thing was today, I always said he's a developer. He was back helping the boys on a Zoom call today, Teams call, helping the boys to develop so they can be good at it, right?
Yeah.
This kid, he said, get in early. Start as early as you can to inspire, to switch people on. Because he'd had experiences, one of his uncles had switched him on. And I think that's what I've tried to do, is after that lesson I got from him, I've tried to help kids find that catalyst, that on and off switch that says, hey, this life, it's an amazing thing. How do I make the most of it?
No, I think that's right, and it's that hook, isn't it? It's that spark, and it's also showing people that how you can apply these skills. I mean, it's a bit like, I was always grateful. One of my son's art teachers, and look, my son is a lot like me. We are terrible at what people might think about traditional art. So we can't draw. Our handwriting's atrocious. But you stick us in front of Photoshop or Illustrator, we're not bad. And it was the teacher that was just able to see that my son's canvas was a computer, and then taught him all about Andy Warhol and pop art and all that sort of stuff. But it gave, his lights went on. That was the bit that I loved about that. What can we do, Ian, to encourage more teachers to be able to think laterally like that?
It's what we've raised our hat, we've raised our aspirations to what Sir Ken left us, and that's all of Ken's stories are all about moments of clarification, catalytic moments. You can call them anything, but it's where people get switched on. So for me, it's about creating situations outside the norm. I think we've been talking about one of the negative things about COVID. There's nothing to look forward to. There's none of those, let's look forward to this, let's look forward to that. And what I've been lucky to do, and I've put a lot of this on the website so that people can look at these. I've run lots of events where you take kids out of their comfort zone. You put them into situations where they switch on just like they do and interact with each other, and they can interact with adults from outside. So we've been really lucky, and I think one of the great things, and something obviously we're all grateful for today. I mean, like ISAM's provided us all with a bottle of wine. Great guys. But it's these industry partnerships. It's us working together with industry that have really switched on. So when I did the microbit launch, I had 23 people coming to school to work with 155 kids.
Yeah.
These were 23 people whose job on a day-to-day basis was something to do with computer science.
Yeah.
And if you can't get those inspirational moments, because then the boys would be working, one of these guys would sidle up and say, "Hey, so what are you doing?" They'd start a conversation. And it's those magic moments. I was really lucky. I got to do a sabbatical to wander around the States for 3 months, looking at all the best schools in the States. And it was just a wonderful opportunity to step back after 30 years of teaching and actually think about what it was I'd been doing all that time. And I came back and I thought, there's only one thing we need to do. We need to create authentic, engaging events that boys will feel are relevant to their lives. They'll engage in, and then I can wander along the side and talk to them and find out about them.
Absolutely.
I think it's that facilitation that's done the job for me. And it's really, I'm at the end of my career now, but I really feel like I'm at the start, because I think I've discovered what is the key. And it's so easy. This afternoon, teaching young boys, it's so easy to find a key with a kid, and then all of a sudden you can see his face light up, and he thinks, "I'm going to do that this weekend."
No, but look, this is the thing, and this is what I love that has been consistent in everybody in the conversation this afternoon. Is it's not about the technology. Do you know what I mean? It's not about learning to code. It's about what you can create with it. It's the end result. And this is why I think, the world needs more initiatives like that. And especially, I mean, it was lovely to hear from Genevieve and her approach and how we're approaching some of the diversity issues. And it's not just gender, it's the whole spectrum of diversity that we've got to think about. But we attract more people, not just into the industry, but we give people more confidence with digital skills if we help them make something, achieve something. Technology is at the heart of it, but it's not the focal point for me. It's a gateway to getting things that we couldn't have done on our own.
Jeanette Wing, she said, we will not need everyone to be a computer scientist, but we need everyone to understand computational thinking. That's just how to break down problems into small chunks so that you can solve them. We need everyone to understand abstraction, how you can solve one problem in one way and then solve a different problem in the same way. We need the principles of computer science.
Yeah.
We just don't need we don't need a world full of computer scientists.
No, this is it. And the other thing for me is about confidence. And some of the work that I'm doing at the moment is trying to connect. You know, it's really funny when you look at all these different government reports and from around the world, but specifically in the UK, and they point to this sort of dearth of digital skills in the workforce. They point to the opportunity for what digital skills can bring a modern society. For every pound we spend on digital skills, the economy receives £10. You know, all this stuff. And then you look back at what's happening, you know, in primary, secondary, and also further and higher education, and they're not being taught. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, oh my God. And so this is the bit for me. And I know, you know, that the work that you and Ty have been doing around sort of developing digital education is a huge part of, you know, I don't care what you choose to do as a vocation. My job for my industry is to make sure that you're confident enough with technology to make whatever that is better. That's the opportunity for me. And I think that's why creativity becomes so important as a vector to deliver that.
Well, creativity is an enabler, isn't it? It sort of lubricates the situation. I think, you know, this work-a-day approach, you know, kids will just turn up to lessons, and if teachers are being creative with their process, that will enable them to inspire themselves. Not only then, they can inspire others. And the same for kids. If it's a creative process, the kids will inspire each other and they'll inspire the teacher. You know, Ty Goddard will often say, it's easy for me because I teach in a Ponzi school where, you know, there aren't any Ponzi, you know. And, you know, there is an element of that is absolutely correct. And you've been here, Dave, you know, it's a nice school. But I would argue that every person wants to do well. Every person wants to learn, and there's stuff that gets in the way, and I'm not naive. I understand there are real things that get in the way of them learning, big issues. But I also know, and we've all read the stories, we watched the film, you know, where you see someone gets the other side of that. And I guarantee that creativity and inspiration, they are important factors, as well as compassion, kindness, all love, all that stuff. All of that stuff is what gets in the mix. And the bottom line in all this stuff, well, there's two things. One is relationship. You know, and we are really lucky in this country. We've got some amazing teachers who have amazing relationships with young people that can turn those switches. And I think there's another thing that I didn't get for a while. And I was lucky I went to a Google thing in Amsterdam a couple of years ago, and the woman from Finland who was re-engineering the curriculum was there. And she talked about co-authoring. Now, I've read quite a bit about it since, and obviously New Zealand's quite big on co-authoring. So that means you negotiate with the young person the work they're going to do.
Wow.
Okay. And so we've been playing around with this, and the year 9s I was teaching this afternoon, all of their work is co-authored. Now, that doesn't mean they can, some of them this afternoon, Friday afternoon, they were thinking, oh, that means I can, no, that you tell me what you're going to do. We'll negotiate it, and I'll keep a check on it, and that's my job. I'll make sure, and you'll document it, but it's your work. This is what you said you wanted to do, and that's a very, very powerful agent in all this. And as I say, we're still exploring it here, but I really feel that it's big returns, very big returns.
No, exactly. Look, Ian, two special thank yous. One, you know, for bringing us that insight, but two, more importantly, for bringing this group of people together. We're, you know, getting to nearly halfway through. We've got one more participant to come to. We're going to take a short break just to grab a drink and to set up for the panel discussion. Ian, thank you again for organising this and for joining us.
Oh, it's a great trip. And Dave, what a guy. What a guy. Yeah. You've been the lubricant. And it's nice that Ty Goddard is going to interview you later, and I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be cool, isn't it? He's going to give you a hard time. You know that.
I hope so. I hope he's had his haircut this time.
Well, me too. I hope he's got his lights sorted.
Yeah. All right. Brilliant. Thanks, Ian. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and thank you so much for bearing with us for the technical problems. That is our world now. It used to be the train was delayed. Now it's like, I'm sorry, we're late. Windows needed an update. So we are through to our final contestant, ladies and gentlemen, Nick Corsten. So I am not going to read a long introduction out for Nick because I can see him waiting in the wings, and so I'm going to jump straight to him. Nick, How the devil are you?
Very, very, very good, actually. How are you, Dave? Can you hear me here? This was back in the summer. Started lockdown.
Unfurl the banner, so people, put your banners down. Use your arms to pass the banner across, just like at a football match. After 3, 2, 1. Okay, start to pass it. We have a camera and helicopters here capturing this moment.
So this is the happy scene in the summer.
Back to your communities, back to your towns, back to your villages, back to your cities. Tell the country.
Oh, that's a bit better. I hope that works. I hope you could hear something there. Basically, back in the summer, we got a grant from the Arts Council. We got a grant from and some sponsorship from LGFL, John Jackson and his team, and we built a green screen studio. We were streaming all summer. This was the launch of our month-long UK art takeover, and here I am in front of old Winston Churchill here, and he said during the war, you've probably heard this one, when they were wondering where to spend money on tanks or the arts, he said, well, if we cut the budget for the arts, what's it all for? And I'm actually here in Parliament Square at the moment because we've had our pyramid stage. We built a half-side cardboard pyramid stage for an event back in the summer, and we had it up at BBC Television Centre this week, where we celebrated the inspiration of this wonderful man, Sir Ken Robinson, who I know you've been talking about a lot today. And we announced a podcast series, the Talk Walkers, #TalkWalkers22 podcast series in memory of Sir Ken Robinson, where we're getting some people who work with him to share their memories, to share their experiences of this amazing man. I know you all know that the line in his talk was, creativity is now as important as literacy. Quite contentious to some people who thought that was bringing literacy down to where they had creativity. In fact, oh no, it was bringing creativity up to where we have and really need to keep literacy. But I tell you what, if you're a young person with special needs and you're never going to be able to read, aren't going to be able to access texts, then maybe creativity is more important than literacy. And that's really the contention that Sir Ken had in his talk there. So pyramid stage in Parliament Square, what's that all about? Well, back in the summer with our Arts Council grant, we built a cardboard pyramid stage in the playing fields of Brookside Academy, down there, just down the road from the Glastonbury Festival. And we ran a festival for 3 days. We had Glenn Matlock from Sex Pistols, Martin and Gary Ware talking about how a 20 pence a week drama club literally changed their lives. We had a dad and his daughter playing. We had little Lenny from Leeds, who's got cerebral palsy, and he can't hold a pencil. He can't hold a knife and fork, but he plays the piano every day. And if you want heartwarming every morning, you want to be doing that. So here I am in Parliament Square, as I said, and we've really been talking about what I see, not just creativity, not just tech, not just people, but this thing called art. Because for us, art is the combination of creativity, technology, and people. Creativity, tools, and people. Because let's face it, technology is only a tool that was invented since you were born. Ask Ty Goddard, he knows all about that. Art, as Seth Godin said, is what we call it when what we do might connect us to somebody else. And at STEAMco, this non-profit community enterprise that I started in my son's primary 10 years ago, which I gave my career up 5 years ago to roll out across the country, we connect our kids with their art and our communities with their schools, because we want to help our kids aim high, whether their art is painting or photography, whether their art is dancing or design, like Morag Myerscough here, or DJing, whether it's fashion or football, whether it's cooking or coding. We have got to help our young people find their passion, find something they can be excited about. That might make them a little bit of money. It might make them a lot of money. It might help them make a few friends. It might help them make the world a better place. And that's why we're so passionate about art, that we've got the t-shirts. The art of robots. I love this. I'm always a bit wary showing this to a bunch of tech heads like Ty Goddard's crew, but that is you know that, Ty, that's a 15-year-old Lego Mindstorms 2.0 robot. It's 50 quid on eBay now, but that blows people away because that will do a Rubik's Cube in 2 minutes. The latest one that David's developed will do it in 3.5 seconds. Robots, rockets, we make rockets, we fire rockets, we get the whole community, and we talk about Stephenson's rocket as well, George Stephenson's rocket. But most importantly for us, this is about art for all. giving every young person access to art and creativity. And quite frankly, that's what this is all about. That's my mission. It's been to connect our kids with their art and our communities with their schools, working with fantastic schools across the country. 4th to the 6th of December, we're doing a 3-day festival, a bit like Glastonbury, but we're going to be doing a real festival with Chris Dyson, that amazing head teacher up there at Parkham's Primary in Leeds. So that's the end of my 2-3-minute pitch. It's probably about 20. I don't know if Dave's still there.
I'm still there, Nick. No, that was absolutely wonderful, my friend. And look, how is the what's the reaction been to all of this, Nick? I mean, it's certainly like you were a tour de force, and what you're doing is so creative. Do people get it? Does it take a long time for you to sort of help them understand?
Lots of questions in there, Dave. Blimey, I should have made notes. What's the reaction? How often have you mentioned Sir Ken Robinson's name to somebody in an education environment, and what was the reaction? Would you say there's a Marmite kind of vibe going on there?
Well, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the point. There is such polarization in many cases in education, particularly the more vocal Twitter crowd, if you like, the education Twitter. There seems to be this left, right, wrong, black, white, traditionalist, progressive, whatever you want to call it. And I think most of the educators I meet actually who aren't on Twitter just want to get on with it in the middle, what we call that 80% in the middle. So I think the point is, it seems to have almost been weaponized for whatever reason. But when I think the people I care about are parents, teachers, and carers, creative carers in communities. Because when we speak to them and talk about access to art, access to creativity, giving their kids the skills they will need to outpace those robots, they start nodding. They think, yeah, this is something I want. Do you know what I mean? So I don't care what the policymakers think necessarily, as long as they get policy right occasionally. I don't care what Twitter thinks on its extremes. I care what that 80% in the middle, parents, creative carers, and teachers and leaders are thinking.
Yeah, no, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And it's one of the reasons why I started doing a lot more engagement from a kid side, because like from an AI perspective, the thing that I found was really curious was parents get this message about AI and they get it from two places. They get it from the media, you know, the robots are going to take our jobs, or they get it from pop culture. So they get a Black Mirror. So whenever we talk about technology, it's Black Mirror or, you know, some kind of technology dystopia. And it's so frustrating because then you see parents start to become fearful of technology. Oh, I'm worried about how much screen time our kids are having, and it's a very dangerous place. And you know, and in reality, what we need to do is to inspire people, isn't it? It's connecting people, and especially parents, giving them the confidence that actually, you know, we talk about running faster than the robots, but actually in reality it's standing on the shoulders of the robots. Like for me, it's being able to achieve more as a result of harnessing the best of technology capability with the best of human ability. That's the blend where I think it starts to become so important, and that's where I guess the connection for you to make that connection. I love this whole sort of perspective of art for all and really making that accessible, and I think that really seems to be right at the nub of what we've been talking about today. Is that a difficult message to get across, or is that something that everybody goes, well, yeah, of course?
Well, it's an interesting one, actually, because we started Steam Co on the back of the C word, creativity. And that often takes a bit of explaining to people. So we decided to go down the art route on the back of that Seth Godin phrase, the connection. Because when you say to somebody that art, you see them glazing over, but then you say, is what we call it when what we do might connect us. You start tapping into that passion, what Ken Robinson called their element, in fact. Yeah. And I think I've found my element, which is running around like a nutcase, inspiring and connecting, and a bit like you with the tech. And I think for me, the biggest and most important word here is education. It's educating everybody. It's educating parents. It's educating teachers. It's educating policymakers. You know, Mr. Gibb, I know I've spoken to him several times. He's very passionate about art and creativity and music and invests in them appropriately. His budgets are limited, and there are aspects of policy that make it difficult to roll out. Everybody really is into it, but I believe people have to be educated to the impact, because we have research, and we could show Mr. Gibb and Ken Robinson did it. A talk he did at the Place Dance Centre, that dance and maths have a synergy. There's a lot to be learned, and you can actually get academic uplift when you have a rich, broad and balanced curriculum that offers something to every child. The whole school will come up academically, and not everybody has to be crammed in to be this rocket science academic, you know. And no, that's exactly. Not what the country needs. And the CBI are realising that, the government are realising that. We need to educate for the jobs that we have, not just this narrow niche of academia. Sorry, David, I talked to you.
No. Those, look, we're absolutely on the same page. And Nick, I know that we had some comms troubles earlier when you were dialing in, but that's exactly what Genevieve was talking about as well, was sort of widening of that and opening out. So look, we need to sort of wrap up, Nick, but talk to me about what's next for you. You've mentioned a couple of big projects. What have you got coming up?
Gosh, yeah, well, what's next? We've got this autumn tour. Every time John Lewis issue an ad, we tend to sort of get kicked off on some sort of crazy activity. And I didn't realise their ad was coming out today. 2 years ago, the Elton John ad came out. I ripped it off, put some subtitles on, stuck it back on YouTube. Elton John retweeted it, 50,000 likes in an hour, and I went off for 2 weeks. So I'm going to be doing the same thing. We're going to be doing a UK tour of schools, doing assemblies live streamed. We can go into schools and take all our kit there, or we can stream from here, as I know you do. And then we've got this 3-day festival of creativity up there in Leeds. We've got some amazing bands, performances, kids' workshops. Friday's Kids Day, Saturday's Parents' Day, Sunday's Grandparents' Day, but it's a bit of something for everybody over the weekend. So that's really what we're looking forward to. And between me and you, we're not building a cardboard pyramid stage. We're building a cardboard Tracy Island. I don't know if you're old enough to remember Thunderbirds. And they're going to build a cardboard robot, and it's actually going to take off, and not a cardboard rocket. It's going to take off in a puff of smoke on the Sunday. It's all going to be done in computer graphics, but don't tell anybody our secrets.
That's no, absolutely. We'll not tell anybody. I absolutely love that for 2 reasons. One, because you think I look young enough not to remember Thunderbirds. 2, because it's bloody Thunderbirds. That's fantastic.
Can't be nothing wrong with Thunderbirds, is there? And I think that's that old school analog stuff. You get kids making rockets, you film it with iPads, you code it with blah blah blah.
You bet.
We've got to access education and bring it to life, haven't we? It's not about blackboards.
No, totally. Look, Nick, that's absolutely fantastic. I know you're going to be joining us for the second half of the panel discussion, so we'll see you again later. But thank you, Nick, so much for taking time.
Arrive now or tomorrow? I've got one in the fridge. Don't you worry. Beer o'clock in my house.
All right, good stuff. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
Okay then, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it's going to play out. We are going to take a short 5-minute break, and so we're going to see you back here at 11 minutes past 5. That's how precise we are on this show. Go and get a drink, go and stretch your legs, do all the things you know you should do. Don't just sit there looking at the screen, going through your email. Take a walk around, come back refreshed, and we'll see you back for the panel discussion. Thank you. Three, two, one, you're back in the room. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Hope you've managed to get yourself a drink, stretch your legs, do all of the things that you know are really important. You're back with me, Dave Coplin, and we're going to go straight to our panel conversation. We have got several of our experts, and we are joined by the wonderful Ty Goddard. Ty, how the devil are you?
Oh, I'm all right. I've had my haircut for you and Ian.
You've had your haircut, and you've fixed your light. Either that, or have you put an extra bulb in this time? Have you?
I've got the bulb in. Stop telling everyone about the light.
Oh, Ty, how are you, my friend?
I am enthused and overjoyed. Weren't they the most magnificent bunch of people you have ever heard and seen?
It's just incredible, isn't it? What I love about it is the diversity in approach, but in all of the different things that are going on. It's just so wonderful to be able to see that.
I was so glad that the technical glitch happened, just so I could catch my breath. We had Max just down the road from me there talking about browser-based technology. Absolutely spot on, isn't he, about tech and new opportunities? Absolutely wonderful. And then hearing you go roll VT. That was roll VT with Joe. Joe, I don't care what we use. There are other products available, but isn't this amazing? The bringing together. This is what he said. It was fantastic. The distance now, little distance between thought and realization. I thought that was fantastic. Thank you, Joe. And then Erin and Denby, all the way from Luton. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. That slide of the journey of arts, production studios, smashing barriers, getting rid of silos. I mean, this was, I want to go back to school. It was superb. And then the loveliest Genevieve, who used to be one of my neighbours, moved north to the rough north of Cambridge. And wow, seeing her brainwaves, fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I don't mind how many layers of foundation you've got on. It was absolutely stunning. Thank you so much. And I know you must be feeling rotten today.
Yes.
Oh, rough.
I'm in a lot of pain.
Croaky, rough. Can't make you laugh either, by the way. We mustn't. And then Ian Phillips I'm sorry. Ian Phillips there in reflective mood, I thought, Dave. Very reflective, I thought, today. He did admit that he used the word Ponzi, which I have never described the school as, by the way. I heard it, and he's just trying to... I just want him to just say, look, we're not all in this together. We're in lots of things together, but, disadvantage has its corrosive qualities. And then Nick Corsten asking for the wine. It's always beer o'clock around his house. Cardboard pyramid stages. I mean, he made you exhausted, and that was only 3 minutes, Dave.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely brilliant. There you go. That's what I thought. I thought it was a bunch of heroes, wonderful people, breaking boundaries, but like you said, so much connection between them all.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I loved about it, Ty, was there's this golden thread, I think, that it doesn't matter what your specific vector is, whether it's dance with Genevieve or music with Max, at the heart it's the same thing, isn't it? It's about opening eyes and minds and unleashing that sort of latent talent that is just in with everybody. That's the bit that's so intoxicating about what people are doing.
Yeah. That's why I said I was grateful for the technical glitch, just to get my breath, and also I think what Erin taught me and reminded me of, how many times I've sat in the audience of performances of sons and daughters, overjoyed, over the moon, a connection and an emotional attachment to a school, but what they were doing was taking it on to the next stage, and she talked about using the arts and vocational futures as kind of seeing them as viable options, and I thought that was fantastic, Erin. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, I like that as well, Ty, because and look, I know there's a lot of philosophies about education, but for me, it's this whole thing about, education is about helping people to be able to thrive in their adult life, and as adults as much as from kids in that transition, but connecting it to vocation is so important, so people can understand that there is more to this, and going on, more importance to this. And one of the things we didn't get into, maybe we'll get into it now, Ty, is, I'm convinced that the big employers of the future, and even if they're small companies, but the kind of skills that we're going to need will be awash with the sort of the boring, cold, programmatic, repeatable patterns of, sort of certain industries and certain sort of academic studies. But what there'll be a dearth of is the creatives, the people who can look at unique and novel problems and think of unique and novel solutions for them. That's the opportunity that I think we're talking about here, and that's what we're trying to build for everybody, as to how do we build that creativity at the heart of everybody's education.
I think that's spot on. And just this final thing from me, and it's a little bit of treasure for Max. It's for you, Max.
Okay.
Beautiful thing that was on Twitter, and it sums up everything, I think, today that you're all about. Music education is music education. It's also emotional education. It's also social education. It's also health and well-being education. It's also empathy education. It's also commitment education. Music education is an education our children simply cannot afford to be without. And I thought that seemed to sum up all of our discussions. And I remember hearing you at the EdTech Summit last year, Max. That's about it, isn't it, in terms of your mission and vision in life?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something interesting in that, actually. That one thing I'm seeing at the moment, I think, and it is linked to data and all of the kind of change going on with technology, but I think there's a bit of a shift in terms of, I think it's always been this idea that we're going to create music to create a product, and I've always been very much a kind of looking for a record deal, trying to release a record, trying to tour the record, sell the record, and obviously down the years that's changed. You know, Led Zeppelin sold a load of albums, so suddenly singles weren't important. It was all about albums, and then CDs changed. And, you know, the business model has changed down the years. But I think what's happening now with unlimited digital reproduction and with streaming platforms which are kind of disconnected from returns for artists, we're entering this whole new era where I'm seeing a shift towards music and a kind of well-being model, where I think young people are smart. I don't think young people necessarily expect to make a living from music now. I think they can see the writing on the wall in terms of what's going on. But what I'm seeing happening is that they do recognize the value in terms of their own well-being and in terms of how creating music makes you feel. And I've definitely seen that as an artist, that I think the reason I've kind of persevered and still put out records, still tour, still do all of that stuff is because I love making music. I think it's harder to be a creative these days unless you love the process. You love the actual process of what you do. And I think young people are way more savvy than we give them credit for. So that, you know, that shift towards the benefit it can have emotionally, I think that's more and more and more important the harder it is to make sense of it in terms of business.
Do you think that's right though, Max? Sorry, not do you think that's right? I think that the bit that I'm frightened by what you've said is the fact that we can't make this sustainable. You know, I worry about this for artists in general. You know, Richie, we talked about Richie a lot today, and one of the, challenge he's had as a, successful sort of band getting played, actually to do it in such a way that you can, make a living. And I'm not talking, Led Zeppelin kind of living. I'm talking about doing this well enough so that we can afford to continue to do what we love. We're quite good at it and make money. It just doesn't seem to be possible. Do you think that's right that we live in that world, or should we do something about that?
Well, it's interesting actually. So one of my big projects at the moment at VIP with Charanga, we've just launched a partnership with Youth Music. So that's one of the big projects I've been working on during lockdown. So we've got 50 community organisations on board now using VIP to basically offer free music making access to all their young people. And the idea is to offer online music making access to vulnerable young people during the lockdown. And it's an extension of what we've been doing in secondary. We've been doing a similar thing in secondary schools. All of the kids in the school get access to online music making. And it means if they can't afford Logic, they can't afford a Mac, they can still make music online and it doesn't cost them anything. That's the model of what we're doing. And it ties into what Genevieve actually was saying about something for the whole world and not just those who can afford it. I think that's the kind of, the ethos is it's something where everyone can get involved. And what's interesting is that as we're getting more and more engagement and more young people creating music, I'm now starting to think a lot more about the outcomes. And we're actually about to launch a partnership with Bandcamp. And I think what Bandcamp are doing is really interesting because it's a direct challenge to the streaming model. And I think we have to be a bit more vocal and a bit more open about the fact. Well, I mean, as an artist, I've had probably 10, 11 million streams on Spotify. And it's been good for me as an artist. It's helped me in terms of touring the planet. But in terms of revenue generated by those, it's not a lot of money. That would have been a life-changing amount of money, even 15 years ago. Whereas now, it's really not. And I think Bandcamp offers an interesting alternative to that. And I think we need to be talking about this stuff. I think we need to be slightly more open about, well, actually, I think creativity sometimes might be creativity in terms of the business model, in terms of what are we actually suggesting young people do. Like, okay, this is what everybody else is doing. Do you have to do that? And I think we've got the ability, especially with digital platforms, to build a whole new infrastructure. And that's what I'm interested in, is building an alternative music industry infrastructure for young people.
I love that. And I think that's been my biggest frustration in all of this is, for me, technology, digital technology specifically, is supposed to be this great democratizing force. So it makes all of these, who'd have thought that we could be sat here, connecting people from around the country or around the world, delivering it out to a platform where anybody around the world could watch it, and we can do it for a relatively small investment. Same for music, all that stuff. Why aren't we then doing it to our business models? Why then, is it so hard for us to be able to connect? And this is what I never really understood, in the context of art. And look, we'll use the example of music because it's easy, but it's all art as well. You have fans who like what people produce. And there's this wonderful relationship where, I so love what you do. I would love to give you some money to pay for you to be able to do some more of that because it's a service I want to buy. And it just seems to be so simple. Why could we not deliver a world where we could make that direct connection? Why does it have to get so complicated? And what do we need to do? And then maybe, Max, this is your point. What do we need to do to finally break free of those old business models?
Yeah. Well, I think we've got to educate young people, I think, about these issues. And I think because it's becoming easier and easier to make music, to make art, digital art, it's become easier to distribute it. There's zero cost of distribution now in terms of manufacturing, where you can instantly manufacture infinite copies of your music across a global distribution network. That's incredible. And young people know how to access that. What they don't know is how to actually look at that in terms of a sustainable career.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's what Genevieve was saying. The first thing is the access. If they don't have access to the tools, it's not relevant. But now I'm starting to create a platform where they do have access. And I'm talking about lots of young people who've traditionally been disenfranchised. Now that I've got an audience who have, now I'm getting to the really interesting stuff, which is the ethics. And I think for me, actually, like, I don't know why we're so afraid to talk about ethics and this kind of stuff, because we like to talk about, okay, well, let's increase the opportunities and but it's like, well, creativity is neutral, isn't it? Creativity is neutral. What is it creativity in the service of? You can be creative for an evil cause, and for me, I'm interested in harnessing creativity and doing something positive with it, and I think I'm quite interested in old-fashioned philosophy and ethics, and I think that's actually what's lacking.
Genevieve,
I wonder.
That's basically what I'm doing.
Tell us more, because you mentioned data ethics, Genevieve.
Yeah, so like what Max was saying, and actually probably linked to straight into Erin's work and all of that. It's not just GDPR and copyright, but it's actually the power behind all of your ownership of your own data. If you think about how students access everything, we fingerprint this, we fingerprint that, it's facial recognition. We don't really, an edge, we don't really have them for that. So by kind of dancing so performing data ethics the way that we do it with biometric data, you can actually see and you can solidify your own, and you go, okay, well, if this is my brainwave, what are you going to do? Is this eventually going to be the map that I can use to get into university? If that's the case, that's going to be some really scary stuff. Or is it going to be that I can look at it and create some beautiful pieces of amazing, quite technical as well. I mean, some of it's quite difficult to code. And then sometimes it isn't. It depends on what platform you're using. So there's that whole granularity of, the kind of exploring these really difficult and complex areas of ethics and legality through creative and technical processes. And as you were saying earlier about it's about just knowing how to work under the hood. It is just a tool. It's a tool to do really cool stuff. So like, and with the music, one of the things I was saying to my digital media students, the ones that are interested in music, is like game music. I mean, it's beautiful, and some really beautiful music. And you can do that in the same way as, they're using, Unreal Engine to code, to create the stuff in Mandalorian, and you can download that on your computer. It might melt your actual computer, but you can do it yourself. So this, I know, God, my poor little baby was like, oh my God, I could barely get anything to run. It was funny.
I wanted, Erin, if we could just bring you in here, because this whole sort of conversation around ethics, and Max, you also talked about philosophy, which made my ears prick up as well. Have you thought about those things in the work that you're doing, Erin?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so what we've done, obviously, in terms of our subjects and this kind of holistic approach to the arts, is really considered in our schemes of learning, where we give the opportunity for thoughtful discussion on all sorts of things. So it's not just about the past, it's about forward thinking, and it's about the future. Again, to reinforce the point about upskilling teachers, you can't teach what you don't have an understanding of. So there has to be a level of exposure to these technologies. There has to be an opportunity for staff to say, actually, I need help with this. I don't know about this particular software or this particular platform, but the children are asking me. And they do ask because they do know, as you talked about it, they are those inquisitive learners. I wanted to go back to the point that Ty made about students and coming to school and this particular, the value of a music education. For us, I think when you ask a student, what do you come to school for? Automatic response every time, to learn. But I think they come to school to be enriched, and we have these 5 strands of enrichment at Denby: well-being, values, community, diversity, but creativity is also a strand there. And what I'm trying to get at is this idea of creativity is in every subject, absolutely every subject. So when we introduced our enrichment week, where we obviously sort of reinforce these values, I said, I don't want a whole week of here's an art lesson 5 times in a day. Here's a media lesson 5 times in a day. I said, to our history teachers, to our psychology teachers, your topic is creativity. Where does it feature? Where are you going to be able to introduce that? What discussions are you going to have with these children that is going to get them to think creatively about the world in which we live, about the past and about the future? And I think, but you've got to be always evolving. You've always got to be thinking, forward thinking, And like I say, the exposure and the upskilling of staff enables that to happen, I think.
What does it do for pupils? I mean, could you articulate it? I mean, Nick Corson talked about this binary thinking, these dichotomies all the time. It's either lots of knowledge or chaos and creativity. It seemed to me that what you were articulating in your Key Stage 3 production studies, your map that you shared us, that slide, was that this was about holistic education. This was about whole human beings. This was about morale, motivation, character.
It's absolutely about character, and I think Max made a really valid point when he talked about the value of well-being. Working in a school, and you will hear about it, but working in a school and seeing it and feeling it when you're talking about the well-being of young children at the moment, and in particular in our current circumstances, creativity is the outlet. And regardless of platform, creativity is the outlet to improve well-being. It really, really is. Whether that is, as Dave said, whether that's a computer, whether that is a canvas, whether that is a dance studio, whatever that is, the creativity is the outlet to improve well-being. It really is. And happy learners are better learners. There's no doubt about it. When the cognitive bandwidth isn't so full of the pressure of a lockdown and isn't so maxed out with exam pressure and stress, creativity flourishes. And we have to make sure that we prioritise that for our young people.
We also need to think about, sorry, I was just saying, we also need to think about the teachers.
Yes.
So, you're talking about that's a lot of, we forget about the bandwidth and our sort of mental health bucket, I like to call it. We need some time, we need our own outlets so it doesn't overflow. So it's really difficult to actually give you teachers. I mean, I remember you barely have a minute to, you don't go to the bathroom, do you? It's like,
No.
you messaging your colleagues to come down just so you could go to the bathroom. But and
you eat orange dinner.
I know. I know, but that's where the the kind of understanding I have of teaching in a large secondary school to now teaching in a university, and there's a massive difference.
What time for the loo?
Yeah, you definitely have time to the loo, but also it's interesting in terms of this is where I can actually build all of those resources and give the teachers space to actually explore these areas. So that's a kind of real privilege for somebody doing a PhD in education, that we should be offering this.
But it's interesting you say that, because actually I think in terms of like creativity in tech, that's one of the big things that I'm interested in, is that, so obviously like making sort of e-learning resources is a big part of what I do. And the whole purpose in my head of what I'm doing is to free up teachers so they can be more creative. So that the purpose of my is to say, right, so as an example, like take an example in a Key Stage 3 classroom, the thing with VIP is students can all log in, and if you've got one student who wants to do pop music, one student who wants to do UK rap beats, and one student who wants to do dubstep, as a traditional teacher, I couldn't teach all those things simultaneously. And it meant that I had really divided attention, and it was really difficult. Whereas with resources that they can log in and do independent learning and kind of self-directed learning, they can be working on different things. And then as a teacher, you can be free to make creative suggestions and have conversations. And what's really interesting, you're saying about the need for teachers to be creative. We actually started a competition for teachers to upload their music, because we realized, well, what's the point in offering this to students if the teachers are excluded from that?
Yeah.
And actually, and what's really interesting as well is that the resources we make, every school I speak to, what tends to happen is the teachers will have a go at making a grime beat or a dubstep beat, and then they'll teach their students. And actually what happens is there'll be collaboration between the teachers and students. And I think for me, collaboration is the really unsung hero of creativity, because actually that thing of, if a teacher's made a beat and they're talking to the students and they're exchanging ideas, I think there's this idea, we have this kind of Picasso idea of creativity being like, some tortured artist in a garret who has this spark of genius. And actually,
like Dave.
That's
Thanks for that, Ty.
But I think it's really, really unhealthy. It's a really unhealthy picture of what being creative. And I think actual real world creativity is usually a conversation. It's a conversation between people. And I think the problem is teachers are under such pressure. They're under such pressure. There's so much pressure put on them that you shut down. And it's like you get into the brain chemistry of it, where if you're under pressure and stress, your decision making shuts down, your ability to communicate shuts down. You just become, it's all directives, isn't it? It's all. And my thing is, if you can remove some of that pressure, allow the stress hormones to filter out of your system and to have a conversation, that's a precondition for creativity.
Yeah. But Erin talked about. Sorry, you talked about it being self-discovery, Erin, earlier. And Genevieve talked about it being, the arts was not a safe space, but she said it was a brave space, and I think that was really powerful. And are you seeing bravery in young people, Erin?
Absolutely. I think Max hits the nail on the head, really, where he talks about collaboration. And teaching, we do talk about it being fast-paced, and we use that word stress, but the collaboration in the classroom, and without trying to sound too cliche, but your interaction with the children is the best part of your day. It's the absolute best part. And when you do find, the sort of questioning and why have you chosen to do that, and what was your trail of thought on this, and how are you feeling about this? And then when they collaborate with each other and they're sharing the practice and idea, and the magic starts to flow and the energy comes, and it's absolutely fantastic. But I also think as well, the exposure that you're giving, so you talked about different genres there, Max. I think the exposure there builds the cultural capital. It really, really does. It builds that understanding of different genres, different authors, different poets, different artists, different dance. For example, we have lots of children who come to us and they want to take part in dance, but they want to do Bhangra dance because that's where they're comfortable. The real magic comes with, okay, now we're going to try some contemporary, now we're going to try some ballet, now we're going to try some jazz, for example. And suddenly the horizons are broadened and they start to challenge and think, well, what I thought I knew about myself, actually I'm moving in a different direction. And it's that creativity gives to our young people. And in terms of bravery, that sort of exploration and again self-discovery is just absolutely invaluable. And the knock-on effect of that comes with the parents. The parents then we're involving them, and they say, you know what, my child's really been enjoying dance now. Where can I take him or her to dance more? My child's really enjoying producing this music. What now? What do I do now? Where can I help?
Yeah. Now, look, I want to talk about parents, but before we do, just there's a little bit of a technical change you have to make. Max, it's been lovely for you to join us. I'm afraid we're going to bounce you out because we're going to bring Nick in your slot.
My pleasure.
So, Max, thank you so much for joining. Max, if we want to find out more about what you're doing, is there a website that we could go to?
Yeah, so I mean, I suppose Twitter is the obvious one, isn't it? At Max Wheeler on Twitter and Instagram, and at VIP Studio Tweets is the platform, and Charanga is the company I work with a lot as well.
And
so
your band?
A real pleasure. Oh, and the
And the
band,
group?
I always forget to mention that. Yeah, Anushka is the band. We've actually got a new album. We're about to announce our signing to a new record label soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that one.
That's
I love it when you
brilliant.
say. I love it when you say we've got a new album.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can see the vinyl behind me. I'm an old school guy at heart, definitely. So,
You
Good man,
will.
Max, thank you so much for joining. Nick, if you're out there, dial in. Max, again, I don't know what's going on, but if you could just close your browser, that would be wonderful. But thank you so much for spending some time with us.
cheers. Lovely to meet you all.
All the best.
Right. So we were talking parents, and I wanted to come back. I guess let's start with you, Erin. But we had a question from Jill Major, actually, who was talking about how do you help parents understand the sort of the importance of learning art?
Sorry, how do we help them understand the importance?
The importance of learning arts. So you've got people who are saying, well, what's the point of that? What's our child going to get in terms of a career opportunity, or do you know what I mean? And I'm playing to stereotypes I'm not sure exist, but I think that's at the nub of Jill's question is how do we?
Yeah. I can be absolutely honest with you. The stereotypes do exist. The priority, you using that language, core subjects, maths, English, science, core subjects. These are the ones that are going to get you, so far in life. And absolutely, because there are, requirements for numeracy and requirements for literacy. But what about the requirements for being creative, to be able to think on your feet, to be able to adapt, to be flexible, to have a wider understanding of the world? And that's why we hold our parental engagement sessions. I also think that you create huge buy-in where you create opportunity for parents to become involved in artistic opportunities with their children, and not just a sort of aesthetic appreciation from the outside, a genuine involvement in their learning, setting project-based homework tasks, for example, to complete as a family, really, really thinking outside of the box, in terms of how you can involve the parents in that. One of the best things that we did last year, actually, was we did an arts exhibition that was within the community. So we approached a local venue who very kindly, Venue Central in Luton, by the way, who very kindly lent us their open space right in the heart of our community, and we held a free arts exhibition. Now, in the arts exhibition, it was the GCSE coursework for art, the GCSE coursework for media, but it was also Key Stage 3 projects that had been completed. And the children curated their own pieces to their parents and to their family and to the community. The sort of fallout from that was, well, when's the next one? When's the next one happening? How can we get involved? What can we do? How can we support this? And it was fun. And I think the moment that parents are aware, really aware of what their children are experiencing in the classroom, it raises that understanding. Mostly. And then, of course, we lead into the sort of vocational aspects of it. Do you want to find out how can you support your talented child? How can you support your, we have the more and most stable cohort, but how can you support your child further with their passion, and we're working hard on that at the moment with our alumni project, as I mentioned previously. No,
that's absolutely incredible. Listen, I just need to jump in, and Genevieve, look, I can't believe what you're going through in terms of having surgery and then being with us. So look, please, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know that you need to drop out, but thank you.
Yep. Thanks very much. Bye.
All right. Take care, Genevieve.
Appreciate it, Genevieve.
Okay, so absolutely. I mean, let me come then to Nick, and you joined just as we were starting the conversation, which is about how do we engage parents with the importance and I guess the outcome that learning arts can bring to their kids in later life.
I think it's the number one driver for academic achievement, for school improvement, is community and parental engagement. It's absolutely key, isn't it? Can I just check you can hear me first? We
got you loud and clear, Nick.
Yeah. It's either nodding off or nodding in approval, which unfortunately was the latter. It's key, and that's really what the STEAM Co model's about. We started in primary by providing the inspiration and resources for communities to run creativity festivals, to do the things that they often don't get time to do in their typical curriculum. So the parents would come in and run activities that the children would engage with, but those parents would be doing it with teachers. So you're building a collaboration with staff on a slightly different level, because that staff-parent relationship is always very sensitive and very difficult to manage. But if you can do something in an engaging and enjoyable and an educational way, and in fact, I think Cigar to Meet You would like this, where you're learning together. So teachers are prepared to admit they don't know everything, and they're learning something with a parent. And in fact, we're all on this journey of lifelong learning. So for me, that's absolutely key. And another magic ingredient we're very keen to build on, we wanted to do this several years ago and hopefully get the funding in the next year, is to build activity packs developed by famous creative people. Because let's face it, kids are obsessed with celebrity. And kids don't care who somebody is, as long as they're assured that they've been on the telly or YouTube, then they're famous in their eyes. And I remember holding up a remote control car, actually, which is over there, and a child at the front said, "Oh, that's that car that's on the PowerPoint there. That's a famous car because it's actually on the PowerPoint you were showing." And so I think if we can say to these kids, these people are famous, they're famous because of their art, because they've made money, Elton John or whoever, and here is an activity pack that you can run on a Steamco day, one of 10, 20 activities that your parents are going to deliver because they saw a video the night before of Paul Weller showing them how to do a few chords on a guitar or on a ukulele, or Dr. Sue Black doing some coding on a microbit or a Raspberry Pi or a robot or whatever. But then the parents are empowered to deliver that activity. We work with businesses. I mean, we teach CEOs of tech companies who've never done any coding in their life to teach kids to code a microbit, and they just can't believe it. They find it so liberating.
Do you know what? That I love that, because we had the same experience. We took microbits to Butlins brilliantly, who fantastic. They don't do it anymore, but they ran this series of family science weekends. And it was the moment that really opened my eyes to the importance of parents in the conversation. Because what would happen is we'd get, I don't know, 15, 20 kids in, and I'll play a little bit to stereotypes, so just forgive me. What would happen is, the kids were all pushed at the table where the computers were. The parents are sitting back like, I don't know nothing about computers. No, don't do anything like that. And then, while the kids are programming, then not knowing nothing about computers is them, basically playing Candy Crush or on Facebook. And then as soon as a kid has created their first bit of code and the microbit sparkling up, they're like shoving the kid out of the way. Yeah, how'd you do that? Come here, show me. And it's there just, you know that you've got them. And that's the bit I think we've got to take the parents on the journey for this if we're going to be successful.
And that's what Nick's work does so successfully. I mean, in the sense of his rocket days, his work, his traveling around the country, it's meeting people where they are. And that's why I love what you do, Nick, in the sense that, it is a safe space, but it's also a brave space. And that point of contact and that connection with parents is absolutely vital.
And that's a very good point. Thank you, Ty. I think one of the things we have to do is, I talked earlier about educating parents, educating teachers, educating policymakers. We say that art is the combination of creativity, tools, and people, or tools and technology if we're trying to get some sponsorship off the person we're talking to at the time. But and I know that technology is only a tool that was invented after you were born. So we've got to educate parents not to see screen time as screen time. They've got to say, what are you doing? So stop calling it out as screen time, or don't stop doing that, but stop reading the Wall Street Journal when you're having your dinner. Stop reading the last week's Guardian at Saturday on your iPad. Stop playing that collaborative game. Stop building things in Minecraft and go and make something and play a game. We've got to stop being specific and stop demonizing the technology. And my dad, he used to drive us around the bend, because that's obviously what parents do, but he used to have this one word that used to drive us crazy, and it was moderation. I don't think he realized at the time that he was really trying to say, don't drink too much, don't do too many drugs, and don't dance too long. But what he was really saying was everything in life in moderation. So if you're going to go on Minecraft, play a bit, develop a bit, I show kids a picture. I say to kids, people who develop games didn't sit around playing games all the time or watching other people playing them. They went around their mates and did some sketches, did some business plans, and did it out.
I think that's a really important point, and something I talk a lot to audiences about, and actually specifically to parents, is the difference between consumption and creation. And it's wonderful that we can consume so much. And so often I'll have parents who say, well, how do I get started in this? And it's like, well, look, if your kid's spending hours on YouTube, then get them to create some YouTube videos. If they're spending hours on Minecraft or games, get them to make a game. There are enough easy platforms for people to access, many of them free, and it is this encouragement to create, I think, becomes so important. Erin, I can see you wanted to jump in there as well.
I just thinking there about what Nick said, and Nick, absolutely, teachers don't know it all, and we don't, and there has to be a culture where we can say that we are unafraid and that we will ask for help and that we will get people into school. Some of our most fantastic work has been from the work of so the National Gallery came and helped us with a few things. We've had a local artist, a brilliant local artist called N, who's come in on enrichment weeks and even during curriculum time. But where we talk about that education of parents, and again, I know we talk about screen time and things, but also where can they go? What can they do? What should they do? So, for example, £3 on a train from Luton train station into central London, and you're at free art galleries and free art museums. Our parents don't know this stuff, so we have to tell them. We have to encourage them and say, you want to raise the aspirations of your children, to be quite frank, you have to come out of Luton and see the wider world and what's available to you and what's on offer, right literally on your doorstep. And in terms of creativity, there is a wealth of opportunity, but it does take a confidence. It does take a confidence to say, actually, I don't know, and I'm not sure. Yeah. And we can't. There's such a fine line between badgering them to progress their child forwards in sort of creative arts and creative exposure, if you like. I think back to my own experience as a child, sort of, playing the cello in a very mediocre way, and my parents so desperate and wanting to help me. We were lucky that we had a sort of Luton Youth Orchestra. But when that stopped and when school stopped, where do we go? Where do we take it? I didn't know. My parents didn't know. And I think we've got to raise that awareness, and that's why the work that you're doing, Nick, is so important. I also think that we have to reinforce how important it is that takes place in the foundation stages and in the formative years of a child's development, for example, for them to really value the arts and ensure that those stereotypes are not formed. I think that we have to embed it early and move forwards from that start.
I don't know if I can come in there, Dave. Ty was at an event we ran with Barclays Bank, 4 or 5 years ago, and Bill Watkin, who was then policy director at SSAT, stood up, and I gave him 2 minutes, and he was quite frustrated by this because he got it down to 3 minutes, but he did the most fantastic talk on actually how creativity has been taken out of creative subjects, how music doesn't actually have much music in it anymore, and how children are learning drama without actually sort of acting as much. And I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to put the art and the creativity and the practice and the physical experience back in, because there is a Gillian Lynn still sitting in a class in this country that is fidgeting around because she's a dancer. She's not ill, she's a dancer. And I think the problem we have with educator projects like Ties and education foundations like this is we only sort of hear from great people like you, Erin, because the worst thing a head teacher ever said to me was, after my son had started at their school, actually, I'm not going to name it, it's not there now. He said, I work 60, 70 hours a day. Nobody can teach me anything. I don't go to any conferences. I'm here at 6 in the morning. I'm here till 11 at night. And I expect my SLT to be the same. He had a deputy head who had a 6-hour commute on a Sunday and a Friday night, didn't see his own family. We have to model the behaviour, the practice, the values. You've mentioned values. I think family and humanity has to be at the heart of your values wheel, I'd have thought. And simple stuff. So great to hear from you as well, Erin. There you go.
Well put, Nick. Ian, hello.
All right, mate.
Hello.
I feel the same, and that's why I was really excited when Emma Darcy suggested that Erin could come and talk on this festival and fireside chat. Because I think what you're doing is, it's not just looking at creative arts, and that's why Jill Major perhaps misunderstood what we're doing here. We're just trying to talk about creativity and its importance, and we're trying to recognize the work that Sir Ken did and trying to say, what can schools do? Because I feel quite strongly that everyone's had a little bit of a sit back on their own lives with this COVID thing. We've had a chance to sit back and think, what's it all about and what is it we're trying to achieve? And, you know, perhaps the 1944 Education Act and some of the stuff that we put in there, perhaps there's a few remnants of that still going through. And that obviously Michael Gove must have been around at that time as well, because obviously there's some ideas that we need to go backwards to get better. And I'm not sure that's right. I think taking a hard, long look at what we're trying to achieve in schools is probably quite important. So thank you, Aaron, for joining us and being so inspirational this evening. Thank you very much.
Well, I think, sorry, Ian, I think, and Nick, you both prompted me about this to look back at some of Sir Ken Robinson's work. And I didn't go back to the famous TED Talk, Nick. I went back to a duller thing called slightly duller, you might think, but in fact, one of the most beautiful documents, I think, 1999, Ancient History, published in May. It was called All Our Futures. And my gosh, to reread that, Nick, with your work in my mind, and to reread it with Erin's work in my mind, and you, Ian, as well, and you, Dave, in terms of what he and a very interesting panel of people that he gathered, what he actually thought about in terms of creativity, the arts, the space, as you said, Nick, the space to reflect, to think, to go on that journey of self-discovery. I mean, some of the quotes were absolutely amazing. The ability to develop young people's capacities for original ideas and action. Creative achievement. Nick, you'll like this, that creative achievement relies on knowledge, control of materials, and command of ideas. There was no dichotomy. There was no what you would call binary thinking here. This was about a whole holistic education, about growing young people. And then also, Erin, this is 1999, the power of cultural institutions to educate and support the education of our children. And this, often the inability of the tribe of cultural institutions to actually transfer over into the tribe of educators, and some of this work, and I recommend it. You don't have to agree with all of it. You might consider it ancient history, but Dave, this was really powerful, and it laid a whole generation of new policy, lottery funded, out of school hours learning, after school clubs, study support. Right. This was seminal. So, it was absolutely seminal.
So look, I want to build on that, Ty, and I'm also slightly conscious of time. So I'm going to ask each of you two questions. And it's the same two questions, so you'll have some time to think. And let me start. I'll start with you, Ian. The two questions are, what's the advice that we need to give to senior leadership to embark on their own journey with creativity, or to go further in their own journey with creativity? Second is the more difficult question: where do we find Ken's replacement? Who is going to be the ambassador, the shining light, the agitator for this? Ian.
Oh, yeah. How much time do I get to think?
More than you need, Ian.
Much more than I need. So the third, I'm confused because the second one's better than the first one. But
just answer the question you want to ask, Ian.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask. Where do we start? Well, I think it's as everything. You know, that there's got to be some sort of school ambition, and there's got to be a plan, and there's got to be training and support. And I think bringing examples in, but subject associations are doing this. There are inspirational people, and I think it's important to look within subject areas, because it's much easier to be inspirational perhaps within the humanities if you can be led in that way. The same with the science. But that sort of answers the second question, because what we need to do is we need to create a platform just like we have today where people can start the conversation. We've had some wonderful people speaking today about what they're actually doing, and it's what Ty and I have been talking about for ages. It's what we're doing with ISCDigital. It's what Ty's doing with Education Foundation and EdTechUK. We're letting people tell stories, and it's those stories, rather than looking for a Sir Ken, it's looking for those personal anecdotal stories about what I did and how I did it and what that meant to me, and other people reading and sharing those stories and building on them like a snowball. That's where the magic will happen, and that's where change will happen.
Yeah, no, I love that. Let me jump to you, Erin, and I think probably let's narrow the conversation. Given your position and given the success with what you've done, I know there'll be lots of other school leaders out there looking at you and what you've achieved and thinking, bloody hell. I'd love to do that.
Erin, can you help me?
What advice would you give them to embark on that journey?
I think as school leaders, you are preparing children for jobs that don't exist yet. So how could creativity possibly be narrowed or marginalized on your curriculum? How could you justify that as a school leader? How could you justify a lack of breadth by reducing a creative curriculum? You can't. These jobs that are going to be innovative and absolutely vital to the development of mankind must feature creativity. And how you do that is down to you as senior leaders to use the resources available to you, absolutely maximize the potential of that, use technology that is available to you, and help the children to recognize where those creative opportunities are taking place across the curriculum. That would be my advice to the senior leaders. And in terms of your second question, where does the inspiration come from? It comes from the children that we teach. We embed these values in them, and those voices, they will be heard. It will be them who will be the successors, and it will be them who champion creativity and the arts as a whole.
Oh, I love that. Nick?
I was afraid you were going to come to me because I have literally I just had a delivery. So can I say something for 1 minute? Can you come back to me? I've just had a really exciting delivery. I'll share it with you. So
have you?
Sorry.
Yeah, of course it is.
I'm going to freeze it. So you're going to think I'm still here. Look, I'm going to freeze it. There you go.
They're often, God knows what the delivery is.
Priceless.
They're good questions. Senior leadership teams, I think, need to know that this is good for their school, good for their young people, and good for their staff. And I think Ian's right, and Erin too, is just modelling by example. But also, if you've got your standard spectacles on, and that's what you're interested in your school, that's what the league tables drive you towards. You know what? Quite simply, creativity, unleashing the arts, unleashing self-discovery, unleashing creativity in your institution is good for standards. It is good for young people. If that's the prism that you want to look down, then that's fine. But what we're saying is there's a richness here about creativity in our society, creativity and original ideas, and creativity sparking those skills and lifelong journeys for young people. Who will set the example? People like Erin and people like Nick. And I think they're setting, the work of Denby, the work of Steamco. I tell you, I've been in awe of it for a long time, and it's fantastic. They are the standard bearers. And if you think that any movement for change is going to begin and end at a TED talk, then I think you're lost. I think it's people like Nick and Erin that are taking this baton on, and they are the people. That's the relay race we now need to think about, rather than turning inward and thinking about how you present yourself in a TED talk, how you model your language in a TED talk, how you sit on the red carpet, stand on the red carpet in a TED talk. I mean, really. Yeah.
It's just like a case
honestly.
study, isn't it? It's the same as the case study.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a tyranny. It's almost the tyranny of the case study, where you only write about the perfect journey to creativity in my school. It's a zig and it's a zag, and it's about making mistakes, and it's about trying different things, and it's about listening. And so, look, I think we've got to take away that now this world needs creativity, in Ian's point, more than ever, and we need humanity more than ever.
Should we end there?
Was that? No, that was for you. What about your delivery you talked about?
Well, there are two things. I think what Erin has said about the National Portrait Gallery, I presume that's to take one picture, where you have one picture and it inspires art across the school. How many of you, hands up, have been to the Design Museum to see the Moving to Mars exhibition? Has anybody been to see has anybody heard of the Moving to Mars exhibition?
No.
Has anybody ever been to the Design Museum, the new one? That's fine. That's brilliant. I could not have had a better answer. So you're all essentially fairly affluent, middle class Southerners who have never been to the Design Museum. Can you imagine living on the Seacroft estate in Leeds, where those kids don't even get into Leeds city centre? And before the lockdown broke, I went to see that exhibition and I filmed it. And I made this little film. I actually edited this in the back of a transit van going skiing. I think we became a super hub for the virus. And these resources are there. What we've got to do is we've got to take these resources into schools to create activity packs. It's the most remarkable thing. And here's a view. Here's a view from Mars. Check this out. This has literally just come through now. This was supposed to come earlier. I've just had this sent to me from the International Space Station. It's a video of me live and direct in Parliament Square with my pyramid stage. Now, as soon as I knew this was coming in yesterday, as soon as I knew that I was going to be doing this talk yesterday, I commissioned a 3D modeler to take my pyramid stage, which we had for Glastonbury, and put it in Parliament Square. And he was in Hull, and he was going to do it for 50 quid. And then he told me he had to go to work. He came clean, so I couldn't get it done that way. So in fact, I had to put it out, and a guy in Vietnam has just done that and literally just sent that to me because he was an hour late on the time difference. And I think the point is there are new ways of working, new ways of collaborating. And I think my biggest frustration with our schools and our school system is not just the binary, but the silo thinking of people thinking in their little worlds. And head teachers run these fiefdoms and they don't look out, they don't want outside perspectives, they know everything. And I think the key word here is collaboration. A lot of people think the CO in STEAMCO stands for company. It stands for STEAM Collaboration Community Interest Company. And there's an amazing man. You want to know who I think should be the standard bearer for this? I think the standard bearer for walking with Ken's legacy, not just talking, but walking it, has to be somebody with perspective in business, somebody who has a perspective of education, ideally has worked in it and isn't just a policy wonk, somebody who understands community and has worked across the country. And there is a man who ticks all those boxes, a man who is one of Ken Robinson's proteges, and that's Richard Gerver. He wrote a book called Education, a Manifesto for Change. On the cover of that book, it says we need to collaborate for education. We need to collaborate for creativity. This year is hashtag Collaborate20 for STEAMCO. Next year it's Inspire Nation, because in 2022, the government have allocated £120 million for a national festival of creativity. It's been dubbed the Brexit Festival. It's got some divisiveness around it and it hasn't even started yet. We tried to be one of the first 30 companies to get some money to develop ideas. We got rejected, possibly because I've been saying and doing the wrong things. If I had one wish now, it would be that some of you people here, some people watching, would come together with us. We're launching a Patreon program because we want to do a grassroots thing by connecting and collaborating with the whole country for our children, for our communities, and as Ty said earlier, for all our futures, because creative carers are people who care about kids, who care about creativity, and who care about all our futures. And that, for me, is what this is all about, walking that talk that Ken Robinson did in 2006. And as Ty's pointed out, he existed before 2006. He did a paper in 1999 that was largely ignored, and he left the country because he got so frustrated. And my dad trumped me when I told him I'd seen Ken Robinson. You've got to see this bloke, Dad. I said, oh, yeah, I saw him in University of Warwick, 1994, I think it was, when we launched Sure Start. So this is not new. Nothing in that report that Ty mentioned is about technology. It's the framework, it's the inspiration, it's unleashing our humanity. Thanks so much for having me. So I do go on, don't I?
Well, listen, unleashing our humanity. I don't think there's a better way for us to bring this to an end.
Lovely.
Ty, any closing words from you, my friend?
No, just a big thank you to you. I think it's all been said. Big thanks to Erin. Nick, thank you so much. And Ian, thank you for pulling all this together. I thought it was absolutely sweet end to our EdTech week. And then tomorrow we've got an EdTech Summit live. I'm trying to be half as effective as Dave at hosting. Dave, thanks so much for what you do. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thank you.
On that note, thank you all of you for joining us. Thank you for spending the time with us. Thanks to Ian, Ty, Erin, Nick, Max, Joe, Genevieve. It's just been wonderful to have you with us. Keep the comments coming. You know where to go. Thank you and enjoy your weekend. Thank you.